for one, the women of color are being affected in many ways. So there's mothers, there's grandmothers that are living with asthma, that are, living in deplorable living conditions, especially in public housing, and in private housing too. We also deal with slumlords who like to, neglect their residents, and this is something that we fight against, right? We have sisters and aunties and daughters that are suffering from diabetes, that's suffering from obesity in our communities. And why? Because a lot of times we can't afford to get fresh fruits and vegetables. We have the largest fruit and vegetable distribution in our community in Hunts Point, which is the Fulton Market, but we don't get those fruits. Those fruits will go around the world before we get to us. By the time we get it, it's rotten. It's not fresh. We would have to go to Trader Joe's, or we would have to go to Wholesale Foods, but they're not in our communities. They're all the way down here, 96th Street, where we're not always accessible to get to. Elderly folks who are not in the capacity to be going downtown to get fresher fruits and vegetables. So these are some of the ways that we are being affected, because there are such a lack of things that's nutritious, so that we won't have to just go to get a nice cheeseburger. That's the reason why I'm chunky now, because that's all I eat. My grandmother, she raised me and my little sister. My mother unfortunately was on drugs for most of our lives, and my grandma was in a wheelchair. She did the best she could to take care of me and my sister. And when she passed, I was 16 years old. I was on my own since I was 16, living in public housing. And the issues that's going on right now, especially with privatization and, displacing folks because we won't be able to afford the rents, I thank God that at that time I was able to keep the apartment and became an emancipated minor, and I had to work hard to stay afloat. So I had to do things like work for public housing. Public assistance, excuse me. So I was part of a program called the Work Experience Program, where they'll put me in a park and I'll clean up dog poop, or I'll clean up rake leaves and things of that nature, or put me in the train station and I would clean up there. But it wasn't giving me any work experience that I can really use, because if I was to go to apply for one of these jobs, that would not be used as experience, So I was fortunately afforded the chance to go to Mothers on the Move. And coming there as a wet worker, the executive director, Wanda Solomon, she seen something in me that I didn't see. And, from there, I've been at Mothers on the Move for about 5 years now, fighting for my brothers and sisters all over the world. So one of the places that I've been to was Bolivia, and I seen firsthand the environmental injustice that my brothers and sisters is going through there, with the lack of clean water, drinkable water. And they struggle every day to survive. Their children is exposed to all different kinds of things that's making them sick, but then they want to privatize the water. How could you privatize the water when there's really no access to fresh water? So these are how these mothers and these sisters and these brothers are being exposed to climate change. Our main goal is, I came in as a housing organizer, but then we seen all the issues that residents was going through in these apartments. So one, we're living in deplorable living conditions. There's always an issue with repair needs. The elevators broke. There's holes and mold all in people's bathrooms and in their kitchens. And like I said, we have one of the highest rates of asthma in the country in the South Bronx. We're also being exposed to, fertilizer companies like NIAFCO. Which is the New York City fertilizer company, which was once located in Barretto Point Park. But because of the organizing efforts of Mothers on the Move and community members, we got that shut down, because what they were doing was taking human waste and burning it to make fertilizer pellets to sell to farmers to grow food. So we're basically growing food with our own feces and things of that nature. So that's just double environmental injustice. And not only that, we were breathing this air. It polluted the air so bad that you can smell it from miles away. It smelled like dead bodies. And it was a beautiful park that was built in the South Bronx that I didn't even think could exist. You could see Rikers Island, which is not too pretty, but it was still something. It was still a park that we weren't used to having. It was like a lakefront, you seen the water, but you couldn't breathe at the same time and enjoy yourself, because the fertilizer company was right there, almost in the middle of the park. So thank God, through the efforts of the organizing, it got shut down. But they're still trying to open it back up. But because we are real adamant about no more polluting our communities, no more polluting our children. And you know, it's ironic that I'm a speaking testament to how I came to Mothers on the Move. I didn't have asthma, and now I have asthma, and it's not a joke, you know, because I have to walk around with my pump all the time now. And before I came there, I was fine. Besides a little bit obese from not eating as healthy as I should have. So I also was afforded the chance to go to Movement Generation, which is a wonderful place that's in Occidental California. It's basically like they're using every aspect of saving the planet. So to planting kiwis over like the home so that it can keep the heat inside, so that they wouldn't have to use as much, you know, outside entities to create heat. Building the walls with mud and straw, to just like keeping it it was out of this world. And like some of the things that I learned was that they're blowing up mountaintops. Like this was something that really intrigued me. They're blowing up mountains to get the coal. So not only are they blowing up our beautiful mountains, but they're polluting folks who are living like right there in that area. It's from the sludge. They're black. The water is black. They can't drink their water. Folks is dying from cancer because of the pollution and the sludge that is getting into these people drinking water. And they bring this up to like their government and to their councils, and it's like they're keeping their eyes blind to what's really going on. So the things that intrigued me so much is that also that we're somewhat responsible for that, because the coal they use is powering our energy in a lot of ways. Con Edison, at least is the energy supply that I have. And you know, they won't tell us, well, you could use wind power, or you can use other alternatives besides using coal, because it's capitalism. It's about making money off of the backs of people who are poor and people of color, and even those folks that live in the Appalachian Mountains. They're not all people of color, and they're still struggling. You know, so this is a global thing. This is about everyone. So right now, what we have done, you know, working in housing, we felt like there's a lot of issues that have to tackle that is environmental justice. And it's also about awareness. You know, when I thought of climate change, I thought of polar bears. Like, you know, I love polar bears, but we don't have no polar bears in the South Bronx. And it's hard to, like, relate climate change and how real it is to folks who see these movies that make it seem like it's fantasy, that it's not real, but it's very real. You know, you see 2012 and you're like, oh yeah, that's 2012. It has nothing to do with what can really happen. Oh yes, it really can happen if we keep on destroying our Mother Earth. So what we did was we took a survey of the South Bronx residents. It's called the South Bronx Resident Solution on Greening Our Hood. So we want to make sure it's, you know, it's understandable as possible, and it's all about awareness first. If we want to make a change, we have to bring awareness and educate our people so that they can know how the situation can really get out of hand. So I hope that everyone would have be able to give their email so that I can email a copy of this to you, because I don't have copies to give out, but I really want folks to go away with this information. So what it is that it shows how health and the lack of jobs and the lack of affordable housing is a health issue, is an environmental issue, because folks are struggling to just make ends meet. They can't think about, oh, I need to eat fresh fruits and vegetables, and I need this, when they don't have money in their pockets. So we address two major issues: the sustainability of people and the sustainability of their homes, and making sure that these public housing developments are here for a long time. Because the main thing that folks want to do is tear down. We say retrofit these buildings and then train the residents who live within and the community members to do the job. So we're educating folks about greening, and it's not just a color, it's not about money, it's about real change in our communities and making it better and sustainable for a longer time. So what we're doing is pushing this so that folks can get educated. We are currently working with different training, CWE, which is Consortium for Workers Education, and we are currently running the Roots training, which will train residents and other folks who are interested in learning how to do construction and learning how to do something as simple as changing the light bulbs. But we want this to be living wage jobs. We want folks to be able to sustain themselves, not just for 2-3 months. We want folks to be able to have careers. We're also working with a coalition called Right to the City. And what they're doing is we're accumulating community land trusts so that if we are able to acquire buildings, that we want to make them greener. We want to create jobs that way. So it's like a circle, but it's all a circle of education, of awareness, and of getting folks involved. Because if folks don't know what's going on and folks are not involved, things will not change, especially in our communities. I think that's about it.